You've learned the content. Now let's talk about how the exam actually tests it. Domain 1 scenarios are tricky because the exam describes a real business situation and asks what a governance minded AI security manager would do, not what a developer, not what an auditor, not what a lawyer would do. You. In this video, we work through the most common scenario types, the traps candidates fall into, and the logic that leads to the right answer. Let's sharpen that exam mindset. Here's the mindset you need to bring to every Domain 1 question. You're being tested on governance judgment, not technical execution. The question describes a business situation, a company launching AI without oversight, a manager trying to figure out what governance structure to implement, an incident that's just been discovered. Your job is to identify the best managerial response. ISACA consistently favors answers that are proactive, risk-informed, and accountability-driven. They don't favor answers that jump straight to technical fixes. If a question describes a governance problem and offers a technical solution as one of the four choices, that technical solution is almost certainly wrong. Governance problems get governance solutions, and governance always starts with roles, charter, and risk appetite. Let's talk about the traps. The most common one is choosing implement a control before assess the risk. Controls come after assessment, always. Another common trap is assigning AI risk ownership to IT. IT is the enabler, not the risk owner. The business process owner, the person whose operations depend on the AI system, owns the risk. A third trap is selecting the most comprehensive governance framework available when the scenario describes a simpler context. If a startup is launching its first internal AI tool, recommending a full ISO 42001 implementation before they have a basic governance charter is overkill and wrong. The right framework fits the risk profile of the organization and the scenario, not the largest possible option. Let's work through a scenario. An organization is rapidly launching AI tools across multiple business units, but there's no defined governance structure, no owner, no policy, no oversight body. The question asks, what is the first step? The answer is to establish a governance charter that defines roles, responsibilities, and authority. Not to implement access controls, not to conduct a risk assessment, not yet. You can't assess risk without knowing who's accountable for it. The charter comes first because it defines the authority structure that everything else operates within. Governance without authority is just advice. The charter gives the AI security program its mandate. Until that exists, nothing else has a governance foundation to stand on. For policy scenarios, here are the traps to avoid. Creating a new AI policy before reviewing whether existing policies already cover AI. That's inefficient and often incorrect. The first step is always to assess what exists and whether it can be extended. Shadow AI, treated as a pure technology problem, it's a governance and policy failure, and the solution is policy and awareness, not just technical blocking. And acceptable use policies that only cover employees, contractors, vendors, and third parties using organizational AI tools also need to be covered. The exam will describe a scenario where an employee or contractor is using an unapproved AI tool and ask what the governance response is. The answer is policy, specifically an acceptable use policy that addresses the tool and the behavior, and an awareness program that ensures people know the rule. Here's the scenario. An auditor asks your organization for an inventory of all AI systems in use. What should already exist? The answer is a formal AI asset register, one that captures every AI system with its owner, its purpose, its risk rating, and its associated controls. If that register doesn't exist, or if it only covers officially approved AI systems but not shadow AI, then the organization has a significant governance gap. The asset register integrates with the CMDB and GRC systems so that it's not a standalone spreadsheet, it's part of the governance infrastructure. Shadow AI detection is part of the asset management process, not a separate exercise. The exam often presents scenarios where the gap is specifically that shadow AI is not included in the asset inventory. That's the finding, and the response is to expand the scope of the asset management process. For business continuity and incident response, here are the traps. Treating AI incident response as identical to traditional cyber incident response. It's not. AI incidents include model failure, data poisoning, and bias events that don't exist in traditional IR playbooks. Treating a bias incident as not a security incident, it is. Widespread discriminatory AI output is a governance and regulatory incident that requires the full IR process. And restoring an AI system without retraining and validating the model first, that's putting a compromised system back into production. The correct sequence is always contain, investigate, eradicate, validate, restore. The exam tests the sequence, and restore before validating is always the wrong answer. Scenario: your AI model is producing biased outputs at scale. It's been flagged by the business as producing unfair decisions across a specific customer segment. What is the first response? The answer is containment. Suspend the model, isolate it, restrict its access to production systems, not retrain it, not investigate the root cause. Contain first. Investigation comes second. You need to understand why the model is producing biased outputs before you can fix it. Was it training data drift? Was it adversarial poisoning? Was it a feature shift in the input data? Without that answer, retraining might reproduce the same problem. Containment before eradication. That's the ISACA sequence, and it applies to AI incidents just as it applies to traditional security incidents. Let me close with a fast recall summary for Domain 1. For 1A, frameworks. No NIST AIRMF, ISO 42001, EU AI Act, and OECD principles, and what each one is designed for. For 1B, policies. Know the policy hierarchy, the life cycle, what shadow AI represents as a governance failure, and what an acceptable use policy must cover. For 1C, assets. Know what belongs in the asset register, what model cards document, how data classification works, and why provenance tracking matters. For 1D, program management. Know the RACI structure, the metrics that measure program effectiveness, and why awareness training is a governance control. And for 1E, BCP and IR. Know the BIA process, RTO, and RPO for AI systems, the IR lifecycle, and what playbooks need to cover. That's Domain 1 in a structure you can carry into the exam room.